There is a fuel capable of powering cargo ships, running steel factories, and supplying fertilizer production. All of this without emitting CO2, provided it is produced with clean energy. In 2026, multinational governments and investment funds are raising billions of dollars to dominate the production of this fuel. And the place with some of the most favorable conditions on the planet to produce it isn't in Europe, much less in Asia. It's actually in one of the poorest regions of Brazil, according to the IBGE. Today, we're sharing 10 facts that explain why the Brazilian Northeast has become the center of this race. If you want to understand what's happening before everyone else, subscribe to the channel. Now, let's get to the facts. Before understanding why the Northeast became so strategic, we need to look at a problem most people don't know about. We keep hearing that the future is electric, cars, buses, homes with solar panels. And indeed, replacing fossil fuels with clean electricity solves a large part of the problem. But there's a set of industries that simply cannot be plugged in. To produce steel, temperatures above 1500 degrees C are required. Today, this is done by burning coal. Cement, which is the foundation of the entire global construction industry, is the second largest industrial source of CO2 in the world. Fertilizers that sustain global agriculture depend on natural gas in their production. And when we talk about aviation and long-distance shipping, the reality is even harsher. There is no battery capable of moving a cargo ship carrying 20,000 containers across the Atlantic. Likewise, a commercial airplane cannot fly powered by electricity alone. Together, these sectors account for a huge portion of global carbon emissions, and electricity, no matter how clean, cannot reach them. These are processes that require extreme heat and fuel that can be stored and transported in large volumes. To remove carbon from these sectors, the world needs something different. A fuel that burns at high temperatures, works at industrial scale, and generates far fewer emissions. And that fuel exists. It's called green hydrogen. To understand what makes green hydrogen so special, we need a quick chemistry lesson. Hydrogen is the simplest and most abundant element in the universe. Stars are literally made of it. But on Earth, it almost never appears alone. It's always bonded to other elements. In water, for example, H2O, H is hydrogen, O is oxygen. Two hydrogen atoms bonded to one oxygen atom. To separate hydrogen from water, energy is required. And here's the crucial point. The source of that energy defines the hydrogen's color. If the electricity used comes from burning natural gas or coal, the hydrogen produced is classified as gray and pollutes because the process releases CO2. Today, over 95% of all hydrogen produced globally is gray. But when the electricity comes from renewable sources like solar and wind, the resulting hydrogen is called green, with near zero carbon emissions. The process that performs this separation is electrolysis. An electric current passes through water and splits the two gases. On one side, pure hydrogen, on the other, oxygen. Green hydrogen is called the fuel of the future because it represents one of the main alternatives to decarbonize sectors electricity cannot reach: steel production, cement, fertilizers, aviation, and shipping. And this is where the story becomes Brazilian. The question the world is asking now is, who has the natural conditions to produce this fuel at large scale at a cost that makes sense? Here we reach the central point of this video. The region that historically appears among the poorest in Brazil paradoxically has the exact combination of natural resources that the global green hydrogen market values most. The logic is simple. To produce green hydrogen competitively, you need huge amounts of cheap renewable energy. And to generate cheap renewable energy, you need two fundamental elements: intense sun and constant wind. The Brazilian Northeast has both in a combination few places on Earth can match. The sun shines strongly all year round, with some areas recording more than 3,000 hours of sunlight annually. The wind is equally exceptional. The Northeast already accounts for most of all wind energy generated in Brazil, with parks operating almost uninterrupted. But it's not just about climate. The region has vast land areas available for generation parks without conflicts with agriculture or urban zones. It also has the port of Pecém in Ceará, with direct access to the Atlantic Ocean, approximately 10 days by ship to the port of Rotterdam in the Netherlands, the main gateway to the European market. When you combine sun, wind, land, and port, the projected production cost in the Northeast becomes one of the lowest in the world, estimated between $1.50 and $2 per kilogram by 2030. In Europe, this cost could be 3 to 4 times higher. This combination explains why companies from 3 continents are competing for space along the northeastern coast. If the Northeast is the board, the port of Pecém is the central piece. The Pecém Industrial and Port Complex in Ceará is consolidating as one of the main green hydrogen hubs in Latin America. The combined capacity of projects there exceeds 5 giridaro, equivalent to the consumption of millions of Brazilian homes. The most advanced project belongs to Ford SQ, an Australian mining giant with a net profit exceeding $3 billion in 2025. Investment in Pecém is in the tens of billions of reais. The plant will produce 500 tons of green hydrogen per day using $1.2 G of renewable energy. The project already has environmental licenses, port pre-contracts, and construction authorization. Operations are scheduled between 2028 and 2030. Besides Ford Scale, the European consortium Trans Hydrogen Alliance announced a $2 billion investment to produce 500,000 tons of green hydrogen per year in Pecém, with direct shipment to Rotterdam. In other words, a commercial route is already mapped connecting Ceará to Europe's industrial heart. What's being built in Pecém isn't just a factory, it's infrastructure for a new economic cycle. To grasp the scale, we need to look beyond Ceará. Ceará is the epicenter, but the phenomenon spreads throughout the region. In Piauí, Solatil's project plans 3 GW capacity, enough to power millions of homes. In Rio Grande do Norte, at least 6 projects are underway, with investments that may reach $1 billion each. According to the National Confederation of Industry and the state government, 3 are already in environmental approval, a necessary step before construction begins. Pernambuco already has Brazil's first operational green hydrogen plant, White Martins unit at Suape Port, operational since 2022. Bahia is structuring its first projects, and Petrobras, the country's largest company, began construction of its first green hydrogen plant in Alto do Rodrigues, Rio Grande do Norte, with a $90 million investment and operation expected in 2026. But the fact that best illustrates the scale is called Nordeste, the largest public selection of industrial projects ever carried out in the region. It received 245 proposals totaling $127.8 billion in funding requests. At the end of the process, 189 projects were approved. Initial hiring is expected in the first half of 2026. The superintendent of Sudin's stated demand exceeded the initially forecast resources by 11 times. What's underway is not an isolated project, it's the industrial mobilization of an entire region. Producing green hydrogen is only half the equation. The other half is who will buy all of it. The answer lies in the global energy power game. Europe has set ambitious targets to cut carbon emissions, but faces a problem. It doesn't have enough sun or wind to produce large-scale green hydrogen domestically. Land is scarce and expensive. The solution is import. The Brazilian Northeast is about 10 days by ship from Rotterdam, Europe's main gateway. For transport, hydrogen is converted into green ammonia before shipment, a safer and easier form to load onto ships. At the destination, ammonia can be used directly as fuel in factories and ships or converted back into hydrogen. But Europe isn't alone in this race. China has made green hydrogen a strategic priority in its 2026-2030 development plan. When China prioritizes a sector, the global scale often shifts quickly. Japan and South Korea have also set green hydrogen import targets. According to the Hydrogen Council, global hydrogen demand will grow 5-fold by 2050. What's at stake isn't just selling a product, it's defining who will lead the clean economy in the coming decades. Natural resources are necessary but not sufficient. For billions to cross borders and become factories, there must be laws, incentives, and legal security. Brazil has taken steps few competitors have. In 2024, Brazil established its low-emission hydrogen regulatory package. The legal framework and incentives reduce taxes on sector investments with staggered tax credits between 2028 to 2032. In practice, green hydrogen producers pay less tax, an important factor for investment decisions. At the same time, ANEEL, the regulatory agency, created rules to separate real projects from those that exist only on paper. Now, companies must prove they have environmental licenses, land, and funding. The government also launched the Brazilian Hydrogen Portal to centralize information and facilitate foreign investment. This scenario becomes even more relevant considering the other side. In 2025, the United States under the Trump administration reduced federal green hydrogen incentives. Ford canceled projects in the US and Australia, but maintained Brazil. This shows a window of opportunity. While some international competition slows, projects in the Brazilian Northeast advance. No transformation of this magnitude happens without obstacles. The Northeast faces bottlenecks that could delay or cancel projects. The biggest is the power grid. In 2025, ONS, the body coordinating Brazil's electrical system, blocked or re-evaluated connections for large green hydrogen companies due to grid capacity limits. Northeast lines were already near maximum, especially during peak solar and wind generation. Since then, the official plan studies how to open up to 6 GW, but the sector still faces queues, financial guarantees, and uncertainty about when infrastructure will be ready. With stricter ANEEL rules, over half of the projects in line failed to provide guarantees or withdrew, showing that not all announced billions will materialize. Besides the grid, other challenges exist. The region lacks skilled labor for industrial plants of this complexity. Pilot phase green hydrogen costs $30–$35 per kU, a price that must drop to compete internationally. The global market for essential equipment like electrolyzers lacks sufficient production capacity to meet all projects simultaneously. Fernanda Delgado, president of the Brazilian Green Hydrogen Industry Association, summarized the moment clearly. The hype phase is over. Now it's time to separate real projects from paper projects. When we talk about billions in investments and international agreements, it's easy to lose sight of the most important question. What does this change for people living in the hinterlands, coastal towns, or city outskirts? The numbers are significant. Ford Skill's Pecém project alone will create 5,000 direct jobs during construction. Nordeste's 189 approved projects could generate tens of thousands of direct and indirect jobs. Green hydrogen plants require engineers, technicians, operators, electricians, welders, drivers, logistics, and security professionals, a full production chain that could completely transform local economies. However, the region's economic history urges caution. The Northeast has experienced cycles where wealth generated did not change residents' lives. Sugarcane, cocoa, and large infrastructure projects brought outside money, created temporary jobs, and often left without leaving lasting development. The key questions now are concrete. Will training programs exist for locals? Will taxes from these projects stay in the region to fund health, education, and infrastructure? Or is this another cycle where wealth leaves without bringing development? The answer will determine whether green hydrogen truly becomes a game changer for the Northeast or just another chapter of the same story. This brings us to the most important point in this video. One of Brazil's poorest regions has the conditions to become a key player in changing the planet's energy matrix: sun, wind, land, port, and a set of laws and incentives ahead of several international competitors. Companies from Australia, Europe, and Latin America are already investing billions in projects scheduled to operate between 2028 and 2030. If realized, Brazil could become one of the world's largest clean energy exporters, with the Northeast as the epicenter of this transformation. Global green hydrogen demand is expected to grow fivefold by 2050, according to the Hydrogen Council. Whoever produces at scale first may gain a decisive advantage. Today, few places on Earth offer the combination of resources and costs that the Brazilian Northeast presents. But opportunity and outcome are very different things. The region's economic history shows cycles where generated wealth didn't remain locally. The resources are there. Investments are arriving, but will this wealth truly change residents' lives? Long life to our Northeastern brothers and sisters, people of courage, strength, and fiber. Big hug. The Northeast could occupy a strategic place in the future of global energy, and that changes much more than most people imagine. Tell us in the comments, do you think this opportunity will truly transform the region? If this video made sense to you, leave a like, subscribe, and activate the notification bell. I'll see you in the next video.